Hi, my name is Whitney Daniels, and I'm doing my sugar project presentation on the dysfunctional relationship between us and sugar. That should say dysfunctional, but it doesn't. This is for anatomy, and it's for Spirk. Um, we all absolutely love sugar, and we eat too much of it, which we learned from fat fiction. But first, what is sugar? Sugar is simple sugars are monosaccharides, glucose, fructose, and galactose. Those can combine and make disaccharides, which are the sucrose, which is our table sugar, lactose and maltose, and polysaccharides, which is starch. Sugar is just about in everything, everywhere, and it's really hard to get away from. But it's so good. Sugar comes from sugar beets, but I decided to concentrate on sugar cane. And it is a tropical grass grown in the United States in Florida, Louisiana, and Texas, and it's sent all over the United States for refining to make it what we eat on the shelf. Um, it came. Sugar has been around forever, 8,000 BCE, which is a really long time ago. Came into the U.S. In the 15th century. So there is its little journey from Polynesia um, by boat, I'm sure, in its little trek across the whole world over to the United States, finally in the 15th century. There's its little journey. I like this little map. It has a whole bunch of little dates on it with some pretty cool stuff on it, and that also includes sugar beets, which is good because they're both about the same. We produce a little more sugar cane than we do, sugar beets, but there are dangers. Of course, obesity has been scientifically linked to sugar. Decays your teeth. It hurts your bones. Causes arthritis. It can be addictive, which is controversial, but there are studies that say that it is definitely addictive, and you go into withdrawal and you really feel bad, headaches and fogginess, and you just don't feel good. And of course, hypoglycemia, which my paper's about. And bloating isn't on here, but I know if I eat too much sugar or sugar, sometimes I bloat. It like kills my digestive system. My body doesn't like it. So, in hypoglycemia, this is it in a nutshell. There are glucose, the normal level. You can see all of those wonderful little white glucoses that are there. And in hyperglycemia, it gets really ugly with a bunch of it. But in hypoglycemia, there's like one lonely little sugar. Glucose cell in there, and that's what it is. I had a quote in my paper. It's a metabolic state of an organism characterized by abnormally low blood glucose levels, and that's pretty much it. Your blood glucose drops, and it sounds real simple. A lot of diabetics suffer from it by taking their insulin. I know in my paramedic world, I had a lot of patients who went hypoglycemic because their insulin levels were just all over the place. They either were giving themselves too much, too little, it could just be a really huge mess for some people, and it's something that's very hard to figure out. Um, some people don't have many symptoms of it. So there are three stages: a mild, moderate, and severe. The mild and moderate are that shakiness, the sweatiness that you can get yourself out of with a little bit of glucose. The severe is pretty much coma and death, and you don't want to get there. Unconsciousness, and you want to avoid that because there are some long term effects that I had no idea that hypoglycemia caused. It can actually cause brain damage, which was very scary. It changes neurons. It swells mitochondria. It causes neuronal dendrite death, neuron degeneration and necrosis in the cerebral cortex. I had no idea that because the word hypoglycemia is so thrown around all the time. But anyway, you could treat it. You could treat it with the little glucose tabs. You could do some oral glucose. There's an IM injection of glucagon that takes a little while to work, but there's several things that you can do to regulate it or to get yourself out of it. And if you are at risk for it, you could also change your diet. which is always a good thing, and try to stay away from those sugars. I have found that eating protein instead of sugars, if I go into hypoglycemia, helps me more than anything, and it lasts longer. Um, let's see. My next slide. This is my reaction to fat fiction. Um, there, I was mad. My heart was broken. I was sad, and I was shocked. And that is the food pyramid, which they said needed to be turned around upside down, and that everything was all wrong. And I was actually pretty horrified by this whole documentary. And but I also found it very informative, and I never feel good when I eat too much sugar, and it kind of validated that for me. In my food diary, my sugar intake is usually, I would say, on the moderate side. I always have Splenda in my coffee. Usually eat like a Pop Tart and a bagel. Everything you see there is filled with sugar. So I changed a few things. And I felt okay. I was better cutting out sugar out of my diet. I didn't bloat as much, and I had a little bit more energy. But I am going to continue using Splenda in my coffee because black coffee tastes gross. And that's my presentation on sugar. I hope everybody enjoyed. Thank you for listening.